Hello and welcome to What About Us podcast. I am your host, Shelly Jarrett, and today's episode is sponsored by SMJ Magazine, an image, lifestyle, and business publication. Feel free to visit the website at www.smjmag.com for more information. Today, I'm honored to have my colleague, Fiona Harewood. We connected during the COVID sessions because we are in the same field of work. We are both passionate about issues affecting women. So today we are going to talk about gaslighting. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about my wonderful guest. Fiona Harewood is a 3-time author, a speaker, and life coach. She spends a great amount of time working with abused women and students, empowering them through education, awareness, abuse, and also helping them to understand their faith and how they can rise above their circumstances. Having suffered various forms of abuse herself, she has developed a passion for working with women escaping domestic violence. Fiona dropped out of high school but returned at age 44. She holds a master's degree in public policy. Fiona lives in Philadelphia, USA with her husband and 3 adult children. So welcome, Fiona.
Thank you, Shelly.
You are so welcome. So like I said, today we're going to talk about gaslighting. It's a form of abuse, emotional abuse, that I also did some work with. I've done this kind of work in this area before. So I'm going to have Fiona tell you a little bit about her experience and how she got involved in this kind of work.
Well, Shelly, thank you so much for having me. And I am really excited to be here. As you said, this is our kind of work. It makes me come alive when I am able to help people along that line. And if you had asked me this about 3 years ago, I would not have had the same answer because I didn't see my life heading this way. But I recall one of my friends passed, and it was so devastating for me. I had to find something to fill the void. And I had my book, River Never Smooth, Reclaiming Power After Abuse. I had it written as fiction, but during that time, it was like divine intervention where God literally spoke to me about picking that book up again. Mm-hmm. And it was something else because when I picked it up to finish it as fiction. Wow. But I could not do that because just around then, there were so many people who were dying as a result of domestic violence. You know, during the pandemic, how that domestic violence skyrocketed. Yeah. And sometimes I would be looking at my TV and I would be crying for people I did not even know. And then one day I said to myself, you know, crying cannot help these people. You have to get up and do something. And with God's help also, I heard a podcast which this gentleman spoke about finding out that prayer works. Yeah. And he was within himself. He was wondering if he could withstand his critics, if he could face his critics. And after that, that profound question kept lingering within me. Right. Would you be able to face your critics now? Are you able to face your critics now? And I was wondering what critics. But then my book surfaced in my mind and I realized, you know, something. I did not go forward with writing my book, with publishing it, because I wasn't comfortable. And I wrote it as fiction because I was thinking, I don't want people to know that what I wrote, it's really my story. Wow. And at that point, I'm like, So I said, God, with your help, I can face any critic now. Yes. Just around that time, I also had to meet with an author consultant. And I was telling him that I'm finding problems with naming my book. And he asked me some questions like, whose story is it? I said, it's my story. He said, is it fiction or nonfiction? I said, it did happen. It's nonfiction. And he said, so why are you telling it as fiction? Do you plan to help others with your story? And I said, yes. And he said, well, you need to own your story. He said, Fiona, you need to own your story. It was like a light bulb went off. Wow. And at that point, I realized I need to change this with the flowery stuff that made it fiction into nonfiction.
Wow.
And that's how I started along that line.
That's a beautiful story. And we know that when women tell these stories, we know how powerful storytelling is, because we know that this is not isolated situations. We know that many, many women are experiencing this, but they need someone to like go first. You go first and you tell what happened to you, and then let me see how I feel, and then I'll tell my story. And this is how we get women to start talking about these issues, bringing it to the forefront.
Yeah.
And it's part of their healing process. Well, thank you so much for that. That's really powerful. And
You're
so
welcome.
yeah, so like I said, today we know that there are different forms of abuse. Some shows up, some you can see, and some you cannot see. We know that there's emotional abuse, psychological abuse, financial abuse, and also we know just out of COVID came emotional abuse. And yeah, economical abuse, my apologies. So we know there's different forms of abuse, but today we want to talk about some of the subtle things that happens in relationships. We want to sort of bring it to the forefront, something like gaslighting, because we know that that's a form of emotional abuse. It's very subtle, but nevertheless it's terrible. It's not very nice. It doesn't make you feel good at all, right? So if you can just tell us, like, what is gaslighting and how do we recognize it? Like, what is it? What kind of feelings do we get from it? And yeah.
Okay. Okay, Shelley, thank you so much for that question. And I want to say that gaslighting, it's a subtle form of manipulation, often used by those who are close to you to control the outcome of a particular event or situation. And it can take many forms. It may take the form of an ambitious coworker who wants nothing more than to steal your promotion. The thing is, people think that gaslighting only happens in an intimate relationship, but no, it does not always happen in intimate relationship. It can happen in any relationship. You're close to somebody and that person can gaslight you. Sometimes you can recognize it, sometimes you don't. It can happen in the form of a purloined boss who takes credit for your hard work. It may even take the form of spiritual leaders who makes you feel guilty when you don't have enough offering. Or sometimes something is going on at your church and you feel the need, you need to leave, and they gaslight you. They say things that it's not really what the situation is. Parents can gaslight children. So Shelley, it takes many different forms.
Right. Thank you for that. And so can you like give us a few techniques on how we can overcome this feeling, or what we should be looking out for, or how do we respond to somebody that would treat us in that way?
Thank you for that question, Shelley. And yes, there are ways that we can respond. But before that, let me talk about some ways that you can see how gaslighting sounds. Like you have a partner, you and a partner may have an issue, or anybody, not only an intimate partner, and they may say something like, instead of saying, I'm sorry, that person would say, I'm sorry you feel that way. Now, that is not a true apology. This is a way to make you feel like you are the problem.
I hear a lot.
Sorry?
Yeah, I hear a lot of that. Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Why can't somebody come out and say, oh, I know I did this and I'm sorry for it? Instead, they say, I'm sorry you feel that way. It's not you. And then there is like, they would say things like, it's your anxiety that made you do the things, that made me do the things I do. It's your anxiety that made me do the things I do. Now, people they don't want to take responsibility for what they do. So this is also a common response a gaslighter may use as when he or she is called out for bad behavior. And then sometimes they would tell you, you need help. What? You did me something. I may be just retaliating from what you did. And then you turn it around and you say, I need help.
Exactly.
Now, that implies that instead of them, they're saying you're the one who need help instead of working through their problem.
Exactly.
This is also so-called projection. They're projecting their behavior on you. Or they may make it look as if it's not something too big or you're petty. So they would say it's not a big deal.
Right.
Gaslighters tend to minimize the impact their actions may have on you.
Right. So you have to like confront them. Is it okay to confront them right away and allow them to take ownership of that situation and not always making you feel as though it's your fault or something like that? You can confront them right away.
You can confront them right away, but also you have to be careful because you would know the person that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So if it's somebody who can get very aggressive, very angry, you have to be careful. But if you suspect you're being gaslighted, you should ensure that you recognize the signs. Okay. You learn the various ways in which gaslighting can manifest itself, and you either try, if you can talk with that person, you try to show them, well, this situation, this is how it is happening, this is how I feel, and I would like it to cease. If they don't listen, then you can like suggest counseling, or you may have to take bigger measures, like tell them plain and straight, well, if you're not going to stop that, then I cannot remain in this conversation. I cannot put up with it, you know?
I like that. I like that.
You can leave the situation, but that is if the situation persists. But it's nice to speak with counselors or a therapist, somebody who is a professional, and obtain help with how to deal with that situation.
It is. Okay, because it's very, very common. Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. And so where can, if somebody need resources apart from, some people may not want to seek counseling or, you know, speak to a psychologist or anything like that. Is there any immediate resources that they can find some information on this if there people are experiencing this?
Certainly. Actually, the domestic violence helpline, the domestic violence helpline.
Yes.
When you call that, you get a lot of information on the internet. Also, you just have to like Google gaslighting, and you will see a lot of stuff comes up. On my website, I also have a resource page, and that is at www.FionaHarewood.com, and it would be /resources. And on that resource page, I have some resources that people can find. Like on financial abuse, there may be redirected links because I link other people's websites.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for this information. As you and I know that this is very, very important information because there's so many people that are experiencing a lot of abuse right now. Yes. And then together with COVID and having to deal with so many things, the economy is changing and so much going on. This is always very good resources. So I want to thank you so much for today. And I want to thank my listeners for tuning in today. Until we meet again, have a good one.
Thank you, Shelley. Thanks for inviting me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.